Oh, these lights are going to give me a dreadful headache.
Good evening, madame.
Good evening, Inspector. My name is Mrs. Birling. I've just spoken to my husband about you, and while we're happy to help you in your inquiry, we don't think we're going to be of much assistance.
Well, I think we'll leave that for me to decide.
You know, my husband was Lord Mayor only 2 years ago, and he's still a magistrate.
Shall we proceed, Mrs. Birling? I think you'd better take a look at a photograph of this girl.
I don't see any particular reason why I should.
Probably not, but you'd better look at it.
Very well.
You recognize her?
No. Why should I?
Of course, she might have changed lately, but I can't believe she could have changed so much.
I don't think I understand.
You mean you don't choose to do?
I meant what I said.
You're not telling me the truth.
I beg your pardon. I don't like your tone, Inspector. Just you wait until my husband hears about this.
Mrs. Birling, you're a member, a prominent member of the Brumley Women's Charity Organisation, aren't you? It's an organisation to which women in distress can appeal for help in various forms, isn't that so?
Yes. We've done a great deal of useful work in helping deserving cases.
There was a meeting of the interviewing committee 2 weeks ago.
I dare say there was.
You know very well there was, Mrs. Birling. You were in the chair.
And if I was, what business of it is yours?
Do you want me to tell you, in plain words?
I really don't understand what you're trying to get at here, Inspector.
She appealed to your organisation for help, didn't she, Mrs. Birling?
Well, yes.
Not as Eva Smith?
No. Nor as Daisy Renton.
As what, then?
First, she called herself Mrs. Birling. I think it was simply a piece of gross impertinence, quite deliberate, and, well, naturally was one of the things that made me prejudiced against her case.
You admit being prejudiced against her case?
Well, yes. I'm very sorry, but I think she only has herself to blame.
Was it owing to your influence as the most prominent member of committee that help was refused to the girl? Was it, or was it not your influence?
Yes, it was. I didn't like her manner. She impertinently made use of our name that she pretended afterwards that it just happened to be the first one that she'd thought of. She had to admit, though, after I began questioning her, that she had no claim to the name, that she wasn't married, and that the story she'd told at first about a husband who deserted her was quite false. It didn't take me long to get the truth, or some of the truth, out of her.
Why did she want to help?
You know perfectly well why she wanted help.
No, I don't. I know why she needed help, but I wasn't there. I don't know what she asked from your committee.
I don't think we need to discuss it any further.
You have no hope of not discussing it, Mrs. Birling.
If you think you can bring any pressure to bear upon me, Inspector, you are quite mistaken. Unlike the other three, I have done nothing that I am ashamed of, nor that will bear any investigation. The girl asked for assistance. We are asked to look at our cases that are presented upon us very carefully. I wasn't satisfied with the girl's claim. She seemed to me not a good case, and so I used my influence to have it refused. In spite of what has happened since, I consider I did my duty. So, if I prefer to not discuss this any further, you have no power to change my mind.
Yes, I have.
No, you haven't. I have done nothing wrong, and you know it.
I think you did something terribly wrong, and that you're going to spend the rest of your life regretting it. I wish you had been with me tonight in the infirmary. You'd have seen...
That's enough!
You knew that poor girl was with child, and you still turned her away, because she'd been turned out and turned down too many times. This was the end.
No, you cannot, and you will not convince me that this is my responsibility. I have done no wrong. And I refuse to be spoken to like this. My husband will deal with all of this nonsense later, and then you will be made to look like the fool.